being the leader of the world means to be the leader of peace. Thank you. Slava Ukraini.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy there this morning making that passionate plea today to President Biden and Congress for more help against Russia's invasion. President Biden then responding by signing to send millions of dollars in military equipment and humanitarian aid.
A lot to unpack from his address. Let's bring in Fox 29 political analyst Bruce Gordon now. So, Bruce, President Zelenskyy was extremely effective in getting his message across. He also shared a disturbing, graphic video. It ended with "Close the sky" over Ukraine. President Biden followed up with the list of aid, but it didn't include that main thing Zelenskyy is asking for, the no-fly zone. So why can't or won't the U.S. or NATO grant that request?
Well, you notice, Shana, that Mr. Zelenskyy made the request for the no-fly zone in his speech, but the very next sentence essentially said, and if you can't or won't do that, here's what else we need. He knows he's not going to get that no-fly zone, at least anytime soon, barring some massive change in behavior from the Russians to exacerbate things even more. Look, the NATO allies, the Biden administration, and a bipartisan group of folks in Congress are very clear about this. They think it's one thing to be providing military equipment, weapons, ammunition, training, and so forth to the Ukrainian fighters. They think it's quite another to send NATO or U.S. fighter jets over the skies of Ukraine, where they could easily be in the position of having to shoot down a Russian warplane. If that happens, all bets are off, and World War III could very well be in the offing.
Well, we certainly hope not. I mean, this is just scarier by the day, especially when you think about what Vladimir Putin has said. It's just always telling Ukraine, do not join NATO, do not go in that direction. And it does appear to be, NATO does appear to be really the impetus for the invasion.
Well, that's what Mr. Putin would like folks to believe, but let's look at this a little more closely. The folks with NATO, the officials with NATO, have made very clear that membership for Ukraine is not on their agenda, and there's no plan for it to be on their agenda anytime soon. Meanwhile, Zelenskyy himself, in talking to European leaders just yesterday, made clear they don't believe they're going to get membership in NATO anytime soon, and they have sort of pulled back that request. So if that were really the reason for the Russian invasion, the Russian soldiers, for all intents and purposes, could be packing up and going home. It's clear that's not the real reason. Vladimir Putin still has not gotten over the loss of the Soviet Union, the dissolution of the Soviet Union back in the early 90s, and slowly but surely he's attempting to bring these former Soviet republics back into the sphere of influence of Russia, Ukraine being just the latest example of that.
So, Bruce, with all of that in mind, Zelenskyy spoke to Canadian Parliament today, spoke with British Parliament in recent days. The West has imposed sanctions. They've been escalating for some time now. Will all of this pressure, do you think, be enough to actually make Putin retreat in any way?
Well, 2 points I would make very quickly. First of all, there are more economic sanctions that could be brought to bear, and that is shutting off the spigot of Russian oil and gas to Europe. That would be tremendously challenging for many European nations, Germany certainly among them. And so they have held off doing that. If they were to take that financial step, it would be yet another massive blow to the Russian economy. So that bullet, if you will, is still in the chamber. But the bottom line is we don't know. This is not a rational actor we're dealing with. If Vladimir Putin was a normally, traditionally elected leader of a country, the crushing of his economy through this invasion would be enough for a popular uprising. He'd be voted out of office, etc. We know how that might play out. This is essentially a dictatorship. And so the wants, needs, and in this case, suffering of the Russian people are largely ignored by Putin as he proceeds to try and play out this agenda of his. So it's not clear that there's enough pressure can be brought by Russian citizens to try and shut this down. It's just he's an irrational actor at this point, and so to try to figure out what an irrational man will do is a tough game to play.
He's being called
sadly.
a war criminal by everybody. I mean, he's targeting women and children and civilians, and it's really hard to predict where he's headed.
Right.
Bruce,
which tells you how little concern he has for his own people, too. Yeah. I mean, if that's the kind of thing he would do in an invasion, it suggests to you that he's not overly concerned that a huge percentage of his own citizens do not support this invasion.
Well said. Bruce Gordon, thank you very much.